The high wall built by the jade-colored runes, intertwined with the purple-gold spirit flame, swiftly surrounded the human-eating blood-thorn vine king and locked his demonic energy to prevent him from escaping. Squeak! The human-eating blood-thorn vine king above found that the demonic energy of his tree root was bound by the hateful spirit flame. He couldn't shrink it anymore. In a rage, he whipped his dark golden mane vine ceaselessly. With just a few whips, the land above was all split into deep ravines, but he couldn't vent the anger in his chest. The corner of Lu Mu Yan's lips raised slightly into an arc. When the blood-thorn vine king whipped the ground angrily, she reacted extremely quickly and controlled the fire dragon built by elemental energy to roll up Yi Qing Han and Yun Lan, who had been tossed on the ground, and run. When the human-eating blood-thorn vine king finally reacted, the fire dragon was already soaring straight into the sky, rushing far away as if riding on clouds and flying on mist. His anger rose and he roared, stretching out his main branch quickly towards the sky, attempting to recapture the two of them. These were his food and nourishment. No humans or demonic beasts had entered his territory for so long. He hadn't tasted fresh blood for decades, so he sure didn't want to let go of his prey like this. But the main part of his branch vines only stretched out a portion when Lu Mu Han felt it and recited a spell, formed seals, and bound his roots tightly. The purple-gold spirit flame continuously scorched his rhizome, making him feel piercing, heart-wrenching pain for the first time. The vines that were extended retracted unconsciously. Yi Qing Han and Yun Lan were also successfully brought back to the place where Ling Fei Yang and the others were by the fire dragon. As soon as the fire dragon's claws loosened, the two people fell from its claws from a high altitude and directly into the fire cover erected by Lu Mu Yan. Qing Han, Yun Lan. Seeing this, Shi Feng quickly squatted down to check the two of them, then completely heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully they're fine. Fine? Then why can't they move? Mu Yi asked in confusion while supporting the fire cover. After Yi Qing Han and Yun Lan were thrown down, he found that they couldn't move at all. They were poisoned by the paralyzing venom on the vines of the human-eating blood-thorn vine, so it'll take a while for them to recover. Shi Feng explained after taking out 2 antidote pills for the two of them to take. In a few breaths of time, Yi Qing Han and Yun Lan's stiff faces and bodies eased a lot. Shi Feng asked, "Where's Lu Mu Yan?" "We didn't see her. We only know that she saved us with the fire dragon made from fire elemental energy condensation and angered the human-eating blood-thorn vine king." The paralyzing poison in Yi Qing Han's body gradually disappeared and he was able to speak again, but there was an indescribable worry in his tone. Yun Lan's eyes also revealed a bit of annoyance. It was him and Yi Qing Han who dragged Lu Mu Yan down. "Your elemental energy isn't the fire attribute, so it's normal for that demonic plant king to have caught an opportunity," Ling Fei Yang said when he saw that the two people's expressions were obscure and annoyed. This really couldn't be blamed on the two of them for dragging them back. It just showed that the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was too cunning. Yi Qing Han immediately stood up after discovering that his whole body could move. With a thought, a black light flew out from the spirit beast ring on his wrist. Li! Then a deafening cry resounded throughout the entire forest. A Tier 6 golden eagle king with a huge, completely black-brown body, a slight purple luster on its back and shoulders, and a cluster of golden feathers on its head and neck as if wearing a crown appeared in front of everyone. "Chi, I request that you bring her back safely." Yi Qing Han looked at the golden eagle king with deep eyes and said. "All right." The golden eagle king, known as Chi, nodded slightly, spread out his wings indifferently and rushed up, disappearing into the sky in only a few moments. Yi Qing Han clenched his fists tightly. Before, Chi was in a dormant state so he couldn't contact him. Just now, after being fed a medicinal pill by Shi Feng, he suddenly felt the signs of Kai's awakening, so he used his mental energy to quickly rouse him. The golden eagle king was the spirit pet he contracted when he was a child. He had accompanied him through almost 20 years of springs and autumns. This time, he just broke through to Tier 6, so he could only hope that he can bring Lu Mu Yan back safely. Not far from them, Lu Mu Yan rushed up from underground to the surface. The moment she looked up, she saw a purely golden-colored plant that was more than 10 feet tall, waving its thick vines constantly, while the trunk in the middle revealed very faint facial features. "Damned human, what have you done to me?" The human-eating blood-thorn vine king couldn't move his root systems and was firmly trapped by an unknown force and the spirit flame. Lu Mu Yan played with a cluster of purple gold-colored flames and said, "Naturally to seal you up so that you can't come out and cause trouble. Are you reconciled or unreconciled? How bold. You dare to treat this king like this. This king will definitely tear you to pieces." In the 1,000 years, aside from being beaten by that monster in the Thunder Zone that couldn't be offended, it was the first time the human-eating blood-thorn vine king had been in such a sorry state. Lu Mu Yan sneered coldly, "Then I'll let you taste the feeling of your body burning in fiery fire." It seemed that without using some means, this demonic plant king wouldn't yield. She had always disliked forcibly contracting spirit pets when taking them for herself. Since he didn't submit now, then she would beat him into submission. The human-eating blood-thorn vine was very useful. It wasn't just the best ingredient to use for medicine and brewing wine, and the best material for refining magic tools. It even had powerful combat abilities. Such a spirit pet that was practical and capable of combat, she'd definitely take him for herself. Clusters of purple gold-colored flames separated from her palm then turned into a pair of intangible hands in midair, grabbing the countless golden vines that were about to attack her. Squeak! The main vine of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was grasped firmly by the purple-gold spirit flame that had turned into a pair of big hands. Lu Mu Yan gave an order and the flames quickly burned, igniting the golden vine. In only a few breaths of time, it was turned into ash. Ah! The main vine damaged would also cause backlash damage to the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. He hated in his heart that although this human woman was one tier lower than him in strength, but she possessed heavenly-grade spirit flame which was the nemesis of demonic plants like him. If this continued, he'd definitely be burned to death by this woman. With a change of mind, he directly separated a portion of his body from the root system, beginning from his demonic core and Yaofu upwards, turned and just burrowed into the ground to try to escape. Lu Mu Yen understood the habits of this kind of demonic plant, so she naturally wouldn't let him succeed, and had long laid out an array before the battle just now. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king wanted to plunge into the soil, but was blocked by a layer of jade-colored runes that suddenly rose. There was even a long and thin purple-gold-colored flame flowing above the runes. Squeak! The top of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was burned a bit by the purple-gold spirit flame and he hurriedly took a few steps back with lingering fear. Yet who knew that when he was still trying to think of ways to escape, spiral-like jade-colored runes flew up from underground, surrounding him and directly trapped his original body. The wisps of purple-gold spirit flame in the jade-colored runes spun excitedly, as if it would devour the demonic plant in the circle the moment owner gave the order. Human, just what do you want to do? Although the human-eating blood-thorn vine king had lived for 1,000 years, but he had only just grown up, and although he proclaimed himself king in this land as his all year round, but his battle experience wasn't that abundant. He also had never suffered such a loss before. So while being completely suppressed by the spirit flame, he could only ask angrily. Lu Mu Yen raised an eyebrow and a domineering aura poured out, bold and arrogant. I want you to recognize me as owner. Are you reconciled or unreconciled? At the same time she questioned, the purple-gold spirit flame was still dancing with the wind in her palm, as if bearing fangs and brandishing claws, staring at the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. As long as he dared to say the word no it would immediately rush up and teach him another lesson. Translated. Are you reconciled or unreconciled? Lu Mu Yan's voice was sharp and domineering. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king looked at the woman opposite, who was like a beautiful, delicate flower with her light purple clothes fluttering in the wind, revealing a kind of uninhibited boldness as if looking down upon this world. There was a kind of indignation revealed on his human-like face. This woman actually wanted to take him as her spirit pet. But that purple-gold spirit flame was also too powerful. He was suppressed to such an extent that he simply couldn't defeat her. This king isn't reconciled. After considering it for a bit, the human-eating blood-thorn vine king toughened its head and said, You, a little girl at Sword King Cultivation Base actually wanted to take this king as a spirit pet, truly what a big joke. Lu Mu Yen raised an eyebrow and said with a smile instead of anger, Then this young miss will beat you until you're reconciled. If the human-eating blood-thorn vine king just accepted it like that, then she'd actually feel that there was a scheme. Humph, don't use the purple-gold spirit flame if you have the ability. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king looked at Lu Mu Yen and said with fear, You want to use reverse psychology? Lu Mu Yan's eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. I can conquer the purple-gold spirit flame, so it's a part of my strength. Do you see me as an idiot? You despicable woman. This king won't play with you anymore. Seeing the ridicule on her face, the human-eating blood-thorn vine king spoke furiously then shot up towards the sky. Since he couldn't run underground, then hell run away in the sky. Just wait for when he calls a demon cultivator who didn't fear the purple-gold spirit flame to come as reinforcement. This woman was fair and tender, her fresh blood must be very delicious. Lu Mu Yen watched the human-eating blood-thorn vine king's body turn into a golden light and fly towards the sky, the ridicule in her eyes even thicker. Her fingers pointed towards the array that surrounded him, in circle. Immediately, only a muffled sound could be heard, and the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was barricaded by a circling jade-colored rune barrier, and he was bounced back to the ground. Lu Mu Yen didn't bother to waste time any longer, so she directly leapt into the array with bare and empty hands, enveloped her fists with purple-gold spirit flame, then just smashed it towards the human-eating blood-thorn vine king fist by fist. Each time the fists with toughness not inferior to a late-phase tier 5 demonic beast, carrying a layer of purple-gold colors, smashed against the dark golden main branch of the vine, a dent would form, and it would immediately blacken, spreading a burnt smell. Bing Ji watched as the beautiful and lovely little owner's face was dyed with thick battle intent and excitement, slamming each punch down exceptionally violently while the human-eating blood-thorn vine king's shrill cries resounded. The corner of his lips twitched uncontrollably, eyelids jumped, and he swallowed his saliva as he said to Mo Yen, Fortunately I haven't truly angered her before. The indifference in Mo Yan's eyes was replaced by a smile, his voice light, You can go try. Bing Ji rolled his eyes. It wasn't like he was a masochist. Although little owner's cultivation base was one stage lower than him, but she was filled with tricks. Based on those numerous types of spirit arrays alone, it could give him a headache, not to mention that she still had the purple-gold spirit flame that had been tamed to obedience in her body. Spirit flames were a spiritual item that needed at least 1,000 years to birth from heaven and earth. It was divided into mortal rank, earth rank, sky rank, saint rank, and the higher the level, the more difficult to produce, and the longer it took. For example, the purple-gold spirit flame couldn't be formed without at least a few 10,000 years. It also required a special geographical environment and the companionship of other spiritual items to slowly be birthed. The heavenly frost golden crystal was a necessary condition for the birth of the purple-gold spirit flame, and a mountain with the crisscrossing of extreme heat and extreme coldness was the necessary geographical environment for its birth. Therefore, as long as this kind of spirit flame was subdued by someone, it couldn't only be used for alchemy and smithing, but could also be used in battle. Its destructive power was extremely strong and was even the nemesis of demonic plants and some demonic beasts. Although Bing Ji was a descendant of a Cyan Wan, but his innate talents were mostly of the ice attribute, so the purple gold spirit flame also had an innate suppressing effect on him. He took another sneak peek at the human-eating blood-thorn vine king who was being beaten by Lu Mu Yen, unable to fight back at all, while screaming miserably. He shrunk his neck. In the future, had rather offend the red-clothed beautiful man than to offend little owner. When she landed in this area, he saw the shocking scene. That petite and stunning, purple-clothed woman had fierce fighting intent between her brows, directly bombarding the human-eating blood-thorn vine king with her fists. What was even more exaggerated was that the human-eating blood-thorn vine king who was usually very mighty had no power to fight back right now and was just fully dodging the little woman's attack with all his might while screaming miserably. That appearance was just terribly miserable. He flew to the side of the seven-colored parrot, but then his eyes narrowed. You're not a seven-colored parrot. This bird gave him a very oppressive aura and even had the sense of oppression from an ancient bloodline. He was definitely transformed from a divine beast. Bing Ji looked up at the mighty and majestic black-brown golden eagle king, his eyes revealing a look of having been delightfully charmed. This figure was so good. Well, little bird, you have some good eyesight. Bing Ji raised his chin with a tsundere look. Chi furrowed his brows. Why did a divine beast turn into a seven-colored parrot? He added in his head, how embarrassing. Bing Ji was poked in his sore spot, then huffed, little master, I am happy to do so. In the end, wasn't he forced to and was helpless? Little owner didn't allow him to use his true form to appear for fear of causing a sensation. The red-clothed beautiful man deliberately suppressed his demonic energy at a tier where he couldn't transform. If he didn't turn into a seven-colored parrot, then did he have to transform into a puppy or kitten? Forget it, it was fearful just thinking about it. Chi was too lazy to pay attention to him. This divine beast gave him an unreliable feeling. But when he moved his gaze to Mo Yen, a coldness mixed with pressure surrounded him and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Spirit Devourer. He couldn't help exclaiming. When Mo Yen heard the Golden Eagle King actually recognize his true form, did he turn his head to Chi, his eyes indifferent, so it turned out to be a golden eagle with the bloodline of a Kunpeng divine beast one. Kai's eyes revealed surprise. This Spirit Devourer was definitely extraordinary. With only a glance, he could actually tell that he had the bloodline of a Kunpeng divine beast. Your aura doesn't belong to this interface. You're also from there, right? A layer of light lingered in Mo Yan's deep black eyes, making people unable to see the emotion and depth. There was shock in Kai's eyes. How did he know? You come from there? Chi asked after falling silent for a bit. Only those who came out from there could feel his aura. No wonder. He was wondering why a spirit devourer that didn't exist on Tianling continent would appear here. So it turned out that he came from the same place as him? Mo Yen didn't hide it either. Towards Chi, who came from the same place as him, there was a sort of recognition. Chi revealed an excited look. This spirit devourer really came from there. If it wasn't because he unintentionally wandered here, then he was avoiding an enemy. He also gave him a sense of closeness. Bing Ji listened to them and there was a hint of confusion that rose in his heart. There was where? You're that woman's spirit pet? Chi asked after thinking for a bit. Mo Yen made a sound of recognition indifferently. Chi was even more puzzled and shocked inwardly. The spirit devourer had a pure demonic race bloodline that was comparable to that of a true dragon and heavenly phoenix, and was also a royal race demonic beast. So how did he recognize a lower interface woman with such weak strength as his owner? Mo Yen saw his confusion but didn't explain either, only asking, you're Yi Qing Han's spirit pet? This golden eagle carried Yi Qing Han's aura, so it must have signed a blood contract with Yi Qing Han since childhood. Chi suddenly felt as if he understood after hearing what he said. He also sincerely recognized Yi Qing Han as owner, depending on each other in life and death. There must also be a reason for why this spirit devourer recognized that woman as owner. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard the shrill screams of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king not far away. Reconciled, reconciled, stop hitting me. Reconciled, reconciled, stop hitting me. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king was in pain all over his body, and in the end he couldn't bear the fists with purple gold flames falling onto his body anymore, so he screamed in submission. Lu Mu Yen grabbed his main branch vine with one hand and punched with the other. Hearing that he suddenly said he was reconciled, she furrowed her brows. I still haven't fought enough yet, why don't you fight back? I'm the only one fighting, what a disappointment. It was rare to be able to have a hearty fight. The body of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was very durable against being beaten, so she vented a bit while she was at it. But the only thing that made her dissatisfied was that this demonic plant only knew how to dodge, and it didn't even hurt or itch when he fought back. It really swept away half of her interest. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king really wanted to just kneel. What did she mean that she hadn't fought enough and that him not fighting back even disappointed her? Wasn't a fool, he also wanted to fight back too. But could he even fight back? Her whole body was covered with a layer of purple gold spirit flame. The moment he touched it, head burn, and the toughness of her body was even comparable to that of a demonic beast. Alright? If he fought back, had not only not be able to hurt her much, but had also pay with himself and be burned as well. It wasn't like he had a brain spasm. Hearing Lu Mu Yan's words, Bing Ji looked up at the sky speechlessly and muttered, little owner, is it really good for you to be so violent? Bing Ji, you have an opinion against me? Although Bing Ji's voice was soft, but it still fell in Lu Mu Yan's ears. She narrowed her eyes and said dangerously. It just so happened that she hadn't fought enough and wasn't satisfied. If this stinky bird dared to talk back, then she'd let him transform back into his original form and also abuse him a bit. Bing Ji immediately put on a flattering smile. How's that possible? My pure heart for little owner can be reflected by the sun and the moon. I'm just complimenting that you fought well, fought really well. Little owner just needs to be this violent to make people like you. After he finished speaking, he immediately attracted the contemptuous gazes from Mo Yen and Chi. Such a shameful divine beast that loses face truly was unheard of. Bing Ji just ignored the two beasts' gaze. As if he wanted to be punished by owner so violently. Lu Mu Yen rolled her eyes. Bing Ji really had no moral integrity. She stomped a foot heavily on the area where the head was on the main body of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king and crushed it a few times. Are you really reconciled or fake reconciled? Fuck, this damned woman actually trampled on his head, but he didn't dare reveal his feelings verbally. I'm really reconciled. Be a spirit pet, well, then hell be a spirit pet. At least it was better than being beaten and burned to death. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king was extremely regretful at this time. Had he known early on, then when these people entered his area, he wouldn't take the initiative to attack them. This was really losing one's army on top of losing one's wife. When Lu Mu Yen saw that he was indeed really scared after being beaten by her, did she retrieve her foot and raised an eyebrow? I'll sign a contract of equals with you now. Well, be partners from now on. I won't enslave you either, and it'll also help you improve your strength. Of course, if you want to go back on your word, I won't force you either. Then she added. When she contracted spirit pets, she never liked to force them. Do I dare to go back on my word? The human-eating blood-thorn vine king had a mouthful of old blood stuck in his chest. If he dared to go back on it, then this little grandaunt would definitely beat him to death. Contract of equals, partner, help him improve his strength. It didn't sound that bad. Hell, just pretend he boarded a pirate ship one. Just contract, I'm willing to be your spirit pet. It was just a pity for the life he spent here proclaiming himself king and this land as his. But he had also long wanted to go out and see the outside world. Few humans and demonic beasts came here and there was no fresh blood to provide nourishment. Relying on absorbing spiritual force to cultivate really was just too slow. Originally he thought to wait until he could transform before going out, as he, right now, simply couldn't move out of this area at all. So it was actually good if he was contracted by this woman, as he could escape that monster's control, and he also didn't have to wait hundreds to 1,000 years to transform. Lu Mu Yen revealed a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. This time she actually profited in coming to Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Her two hands kept forming seals and she mouthed an obscure spell. Strips of jade-colored runes flew out of her body, wounding around the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. A drop of blood essence fell from her fingertip and dripped onto the top of the other party's head. A warm light circle enveloped the one human and one demon, constantly flowing with colorful, glaze-like colors. After a while, the colorful glaze light circle vanished, and there was also a spiritual connection between Lu Mu Yen and the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. The originally reluctant human-eating blood-thorn vine king's cultivation base, after the contract, suddenly skyrocketed, and the dark golden-colored vines grew numerous main branches again, while the roots returned in his body again. He was completely shocked inwardly. The green fog on this woman could actually allow him to evolve. He instantly soared from initial phase tier 6 to middle phase tier 6 strength. This was the result that he could only obtain after cultivating at least 10 years. Of course, if he absorbed the blood of high-level sword masters and demonic beasts, then he could also advance quickly, but it still wasn't as miraculous as the green fog. Shui pays formal respects to owner. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king was much more sincere at this time. That green fog was a good thing. It might actually be a good choice to follow this woman, and the resistance in his heart also eased a lot. Lu Mu Yen was also amazed inwardly at the effect of the green sea of fog. Not only could it remove poison, heal wounds, had a repairing function, and nourish the meridian, but it could also promote the advancement of spirit pets. No. There was no such situation when she contracted Mo Yen, Bing Ji and Miao Miao. Lu Mu Yan's eyes were as deep as the sea. It seemed that the green fog was only useful for demonic plants, then was it also useful for spiritual herbs? An idea suddenly popped up in her mind. She could try it when she returned. She knew that this kind of advancement was only obvious when contracting. The green sea of fog in her body could help Shui, but it would no longer be as fast and miraculous as it was just now. Shui, can you still turn smaller? Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows and looked the human-eating blood-thorn vine king up and down. It'd be too flamboyant to release such a figure in the future. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king couldn't help but hold his forehead with a vine. Shui, could I not want this name? But he didn't dare to resist, otherwise it was immediate service with flames. Remembering the power of the purple gold spirit flame, he couldn't resist shuddering. He'd never forget the burning sensation just now. Now that he was finally repaired by the green fog in that woman, it would be best if he didn't seek death. Owner, I can become the size of your 7-colored parrot. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king said respectfully. Only then did Lu Mu Yen nod with satisfaction. With a thought, the jade-colored rune ribbon that surrounded the human-eating blood-thorn vine king entered her body, and the array was also removed. Shui felt that the moment the suppression from the array was dissipated, he could consciously reduce the size of his body to the size of Bing Ji. You don't have to be so unfamiliar and respectful to me in the future. Lu Mu Yen looked at Shui seriously and said, in the future, we'll be life and death partners. Once the contract of equals took effect, then it couldn't be broken. Their future life and death would be linked together. She regarded all her spirit pets as partners and not spirit pets. Shui's heart tightened and was actually moved by Lu Mu Yan's sincerity. His guard was lowered a lot. He also found that the contract signed between them didn't have the coercive oppression on the spirit pet from the owner, and instead, they were equal to each other, so he also didn't resist being her spirit pet anymore. Either way, the two divine beasts opposite were willing to become her spirit pets, so there was even less of a problem regarding face for a demonic plant like him. Meanwhile, in just a few breaths after Xue was contracted, in a secret room of a large hall in the Thunder Zone, a leaf-shaped golden spar suddenly shattered into several pieces. Seeing this, a demon cultivator hurried to Monarch's resting quarters to report the abnormality. In the Thunder Zone's main hall, Thunder Monarch wore a silk, cyan, long robe, leaning lazily on the couch with a glass of wine. The guardian who guarded the demon pavilion hurried in and knelt down anxiously. Monarch, the jade tablet of the human-eating blood thorn vine king is shattered. Thunder Monarch opened his half-closed eyes, his gaze stern and grim. How did it shatter? The guardian of the demon pavilion's body shook and said, he was contracted by a human. Inside the demon pavilion were the demon-souled jade tablets of all the tier 6 demonic beasts in the 3 danger areas in Sunset Cloud Mountain Range, and they were also all subject to Thunder Monarch. There were only 2 possible ways for the jade tablets to be broken. One was to be killed, and the other was to be contracted by humans. In this area, there had been no such thing as a tier 6 demonic beast having been contracted by a human for 1,000 years. Who knew that this time, the human-eating blood thorn vine king that was practically invincible among the tier 6 would be contracted by a human? He was afraid that in a fit of anger, Monarch wouldn't even let go of little demons like him. Thunder Monarch shook the wine glass gently, and with a thought, he flicked 2 drops of wine in the glass into the air. Once the demonic energy was poured in, the previous image appeared again. Within the image was all of what happened when Lu Mu Yen and her party stepped into the area of the golden thorn bushes. Purple gold spirit flame. Thunder Monarch's thin lips parted lightly. He moved his gaze to the 7-colored parrot and the palm-sized fire cloud mink. His calm eyes revealed a rare hint of surprise, spirit devourer and Cyan Luan's descendant. Who knew that our little interface even has such divine beasts? The 3 danger areas had long been controlled by Thunder Monarch, so all the auras of the humans or demonic beasts that entered couldn't escape the detection of his demonic sense. There was a ray of light in his dark eyes and the hand holding the cup tightened. That woman could just be an opportunity. Monarch, should we catch and bring those human swordmasters here? The burly man standing below asked. He was the captain of Thunder Monarch's bodyguards. Seeing Thunder Monarch's expression change constantly, something that hadn't appeared in hundreds of years, he took a step forward, half-knelt, and asked for instructions. Thunder Monarch raised his eyes and scanned the purple-clothed woman in the image, then said leisurely after a while, no need, this monarch will go in person. After speaking, in a flash, he disappeared from the large hall. Golden Thorn Bush area. Lu Mu Yen was in a very good mood after subduing Xue. When she saw the Golden Eagle King standing with Mo Yen not far away, she was taken aback. She walked over and asked, you're Qing Han's spirit pet? This Golden Eagle King exuded the bloodline aura of Yi Qing Han. She could use the ancient contract skill, that's why she could feel it. A hint of surprise flashed in Kai's eyes. This woman was indeed extraordinary, yes. Owner asked me to take you back. Let's go then. Lu Mu Yen nodded, then said to the human-eating blood thorn vine king, Xue, call back the human-eating blood thorn vines besieging my friends. Yes, owner. With a thought in Xue's demonic consciousness, all the human-eating blood thorn vines that were besieging Yi Qing Han and the others burrowed into the ground and returned to his original body. Seeing that the human-eating blood thorn vines that were attacking the fire cover had instantly disappeared without a trace, Mu Yi sat on the ground wearily and poured out pills to recover. I guess Lu Mu Yen already killed the human-eating blood thorn vine king controlling behind the scenes. Should be. Yi Qing Han said, looking not far away. Not long after, the few people saw the black-brown golden eagle soaring in mid-air towards them and sitting on his back was precisely Lu Mu Yen. Mu Yen, are you alright? Yi Qing Han stepped forward and asked with concern as soon as Lu Mu Yen touched the ground. Lu Mu Yen nodded with a smile, no problem. Shifeng raised his head with some worry in his eyes, the human-eating blood thorn vine king's dead? No, but he won't appear to harm us again. Lu Mu Yen said with a light smile, although she was good friends with Mu Yi and Shifeng, but they hadn't yet reached the point where they could trust each other in life and death. As for Yi Qing Han, she didn't want to hide it from him, and she believed that she would tell him when they returned. Shifeng and Mu Yi weren't talkative people either. After hearing her say that, they also relaxed and didn't ask any more questions. Let's go. Let's sweep up a few tier 5 demonic beasts and return. Lu Mu Yen just felt that it wasn't appropriate to stay here for a long time. The others had also recovered quite a bit of elemental energy, so they stood up to leave with her. But after only walking a few steps, Xue's exclamation sounded in Lu Mu Yan's sea of consciousness, owner, that monster from the Thunder Zone's here. Lu Mu Yen felt a little tremble in Xue's voice, and she realized that he was exceptionally afraid of whatever that monster from the Thunder Zone was. Then her eyes were filled with gravity. A demonic beast that could make Xue so fearful could only be the legendary Tier 9-1. But she had not yet even thought of any countermeasures when a dense pressure locked onto this space and the several people couldn't help but almost kneel on the ground. Lu Mu Yan's face turned pale. While facing this pressure, a thought actually formed in her mind that she couldn't fight against it. This was precisely the insurmountable gap between cultivation bases. Even if she could fight across stages, but she was still powerless in the face of a powerhouse 2, or even more stages higher. What's this? Shifeng looked emotionlessly in the distance not far away, but his legs were slightly trembling. He tried his best not to kneel and submit. The legendary Tier 9 demonic beast. Yi Qing Han's expression turned grim. He dealt with demonic beasts the most here. The only thing that could make him feel powerless to fight against, with lingering fear as if they were enveloped by death, was probably only that tier 9 demonic beast. Despair rose in the hearts of the few. Could today really be the day they would truly fall here? Lu Muyen also had a rare look of gloom in her eyes, but she didn't feel helpless. She had lived 2 lives, she wouldn't fear death. The pressure grew denser, and a cyan shadow suddenly appeared in front of the several people. His body was covered in a layer of mist and his face couldn't be seen clearly. His figure was tall, and the temperament of a king was undoubtedly revealed. Lu Muyen and the others couldn't see through his level of cultivation at all. They only felt a surge of suppression, making them unable to breathe. Is there something you need, Your Excellency? Lu Muyen's eyes didn't have much turbulence and her voice was calm. She could feel that there wasn't any killing intent from this high-level demonic beast. So the purpose of his sudden arrival could be deliberated. Thunder Monarch's lips curled into an arc. This woman sure was very courageous. Being able to still remain so calm and composed when facing him couldn't help but feel a sense of appreciation rise in his heart. You broke into this monarch's area without authorization, don't you need to give this monarch an explanation? Little owner, don't listen to this monster. The Thunder Zone is his domain, and this is my territory. Shui shouted. He was both afraid and hateful of Thunder Monarch. Lu Muyen's lips twitched. What, your territory? If he wanted to kill you, wasn't it like crushing a grasshopper? What do you want us to explain, senior? Yi Qinghan tuffed his head and asked. He couldn't let Lu Muyen come forward to deal with this. In the face of such a dangerous powerhouse, a man was needed. Ling Fei Yang and the others also showed the same thought, looking deeply at the mysterious man who appeared. Monarch Ming ignored Yi Qinghan's question and looked straight at Lu Muyen. This monarch wants to speak with you privately. Translated product by This monarch wants to speak with you privately. Upon hearing Thunder Monarch's request, Yi Qinghan and the others were startled. They anxiously wanted to stop him, but Lu Muyen waved her hand to stop them. All right. Lu Muyen looked up at Thunder Monarch and said lightly. The strength of this tier 9 demonic beast could sweep away countless kingdoms and clans just by going out. How could they be able to resist him here? Thunder Monarch was more satisfied with Lu Muyen's straightforwardness. He gently waved his sleeves and the one human, one demon disappeared from here. He came for Lu Muyen. Shifeng knitted his brows tightly. Ling Fei Yang's hand on the wheelchair clenched so tightly that it turned white. Yener will be fine. That tier 9 demon cultivator had no killing intent. But he didn't know what he wanted with Lu Muyen, so he couldn't help but worry. The several people here were very worried, while Lu Muyen stood in a large hall after swaying for a bit. Thunder Monarch walked straight to his throne and his face was still unclear. He picked up the glass of wine on the table beside him, took a sip and didn't speak. Lu Muyen wasn't in a hurry either. There were no other chairs in the large hall except for the throne, so she just stood there quietly, her eyes cold. After quite a while, Thunder Monarch said, "You're quite bold. Aren't you scared this monarch will kill you all? Your strength is much higher than us. It's just a matter of tapping your finger if you wanted to kill us. Since we can't resist, then why be afraid? It's just a waste of energy." Lu Muyen replied calmly and composedly. Do you know why this monarch wants to see you privately? Lu Muyen felt that it definitely wasn't simple for this demonic beast to find her, so she concealed the strange color in her eyes. Is it for the human-eating blood-thorn vine king? This monarch wouldn't put a mere tier 6 demonic beast at heart. Thunder Monarch's gaze remained indifferent. Just directly speak your purpose. Lu Muyen couldn't think of what this demon cultivator's plans were, so she went straight to the point. This monarch will ask you a few questions. If you answer truthfully, then your lives will be spared. Thunder Monarch's voice grew colder, with a hint of threatening. Of course, if you deliberately deceive this monarch, then you and your companions will remain here and be the nourishment for the demonic plants in the back garden. Lu Muyen narrowed her eyes and an indescribable emotion emerged spontaneously. This was the gap in strength. In the face of level suppression, she could only yield. In her heart, the improvement of strength grew even more urgent. Just ask. What's the skill you use to contract the human-eating blood-thorn vine king? This monarch sees that it's different from the beast-taming skill of Tianling continent. Thunder Monarch played with the wine glass and asked casually. Lu Muyen didn't conceal it either. Ancient contract skill, based on equality contracts. How is it equal? Thunder Monarch continued to ask. Lu Muyen wondered why this demon cared about this, but her face was calm and didn't show it. After the contract is formed, the relationship between me and my spirit pet is that of an equal partnership. I can't force them to do anything they don't want to do, and it's also impossible to take the lives of spirit pets like other beast taming skills can. And the most important thing is that once the contracts of other beast taming skills are successful, when the owner dies, the spirit pet will also definitely die. But the ancient contract skill I use is different. If the owner dies, the spirit pet wouldn't die. Hearing that the other party's breathing wasn't as steady as before, Lu Muyen's lips curled, saying with a smile, however, the contracted spirit pet must not have the slightest thought of betrayal, let alone the idea of killing their owner. Otherwise it will suffer severe punishment from the laws of space, making them feel as if dying was better than living, and they would never be able to turn their situation over. Can the owner take the initiative to cancel such a contract? Thunder Monarch asked in a heavy tone. Can't. I found and cultivated this ancient contract skill in an ancient cultivator's cave. There's only the method of contract, but there's no method to terminate the contract. Lu Muyen shook her head. Thunder Monarch fell silent for a while before continuing to speak. What if your contracted spirit pet doesn't want to be by your side? I've always disliked forcing people, same with spirit pets. If they don't want to be with me, although I can't cancel the contract, but I want force and restrain their freedom. Lu Muyan's voice was clear and ethereal, but with a hint of willful uninhibitedness. She would use both hard and soft tactics, but if she still couldn't keep the spirit pet she contracted by her side, then it was she who was incompetent, so naturally she wouldn't restrain their freedom. How many demonic beasts can you contract with the ancient contract skill? Thunder Monarch asked while rubbing the wine glass. Lu Muyan cursed Thunder Monarch again and again in her heart. He really was abnormal, like the human-eating Bloodthorn Vine King said. Who knew what the use of inquiring about this was? 10 contracts can be made. She didn't say that. In fact, the contract had no upper limit, and instead said a reserve number. Thunder Monarch nodded slightly, paused, then asked, I heard that you human cultivators will have a grand event for the whole continent soon? Yes. In another 2 months, there'll be a continental tournament for hegemony on Tianling continent. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes inwardly. This demon definitely asked while knowing the answer. You're participating? Thunder Monarch's tone was affirmative. Lu Muyan nodded, participating. Very good. Thunder Monarch took a sip of the wine from the cup and his voice was cold and mellow. This monarch needs help from you. After it is done, the benefits will definitely exceed your imagination. Lu Muyan chuckled lightly. What if it can't be done? The help wanted by a tier 9 demonic beast definitely wouldn't be simple. Naturally there's only a dead end. Thunder Monarch said decisively. Lu Muyan's expression didn't change, and her eyes showed an expression of as expected. But right now she was under the control of others and couldn't get away for the time being. Help with what? Now isn't the time for you to know. When you actually have the life to survive until you see this monarch again in the tournament for hegemony, then you will naturally know. Thunder Monarch obviously looked as if he didn't want to talk too much. Lu Muyan wasn't annoyed either. Sure. I promise you. The more challenging something was, the more she liked to do it. But she noted down the several threats from Thunder Monarch today. When she had the opportunity, she would definitely repay him a bit. I didn't expect that, although you aren't that old, but you're quite bold. This is the first time this monarch has felt appreciation for a person of the human race. Thunder Monarch chuckled deeply. Then thank you for your appreciation. Lu Muyan replied lightly. What did you all want to do, coming to the 3 danger areas of Sunset Cloud Mountain Range? Thunder Monarch asked. Lu Muyan's bright eyes gleamed. She raised her head and said, came in to contract a few tier 5 demonic beasts as spirit pets. Since you want me to do something for you, why don't you give me some interest first? Bing Ji and Shui, who stood on her shoulders, rolled their eyes at the same time. Did their owner have to be so arrogant? She even dared to ask for interest in front of such a high-level demonic beast. Truly it made them worship her so much. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes were also dyed with a smile. This woman really had a temperament that wouldn't allow herself to suffer any losses wherever she went. Thunder Monarch was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. This human woman was indeed really interesting. Being here for so many years, this was the first time anyone dared to ask him for interest. Speak. Gift a few peak phase tier 5 demonic beasts to me. Lu Muyan said exorbitantly, I believe that with your cultivation base and vision, this request should be considered a drizzle, right? Such a request is indeed nothing. Sure, this monarch agrees. Thunder Monarch didn't hesitate. You also shouldn't remain here any longer. Hurry back and improve your strength to participate in the continental tournament for hegemony. After speaking, he didn't wait for Lu Muyan to answer, and with a wave of his sleeve, she and the few people in the golden thorn bushes were sent out of the 3 danger areas. After Lu Muyan disappeared in the large hall, he poured a glass of wine and there was a rare smile on his stern face. Little girl, after 2 months, I hope you can remain alive to see this monarch. Lu Muyan was sent by Thunder Monarch to outside the foggy forest. As soon as she stabilized herself, 8 peak phase tier 5 demonic beasts with their demonic energy bound fell to her side. She looked around and found that there weren't any auras of Yi Qing Han and the others, and also knew that Thunder Monarch didn't want her to be exposed. She walked in front of the several demonic beasts, quickly formed seals and inserted a different type of contract skill within the ancient contract skill into the body of the demonic beasts. The jade-colored talisman seals entered the bodies of the 8 demonic beasts one after the other, forming a seal in the Yaofu. As long as it was under the influence of her mental energy, others could be recognized as owner. After the contract was completed, she put all the 8 demonic beasts into the spirit beast ring. Mo Yan, can you find out where Qing Han and the others are? Lu Muyan also put Shui into the spirit beast ring. He was also one of her life-saving skills and couldn't be exposed. Mo Yan looked towards the east and said, over there. It'll take nearly 2 hours to get there. Lu Muyan nodded, then used flash steps to move in that direction. She didn't want to go there so early, and by arriving 2 hours later, she could also bring out 2 demonic beasts, saying that she caught it along the way. Owner, what does the tier 9 demon cultivator want you to help with? I don't think it'll be that simple. Bing Ji's tone carried some rare cautiousness. Lu Muyan smiled and said, well, no, when the time comes. Didn't you hear him keep emphasizing that he hopes for me to stay alive to see him? Just what's his purpose? Mo Yan's eyes darkened. Did you all discover a problem? Lu Muyan asked. What problem? Mo Yan and Bing Ji asked at the same time. He was constantly asking me about my ancient contract skill, and he emphasized the continental tournament for hegemony. That is, what he asked me to help with must have something to do with the tournament for hegemony. Lu Muyan said. The 2 demons reviewed the conversation between Thunder Monarch and Lu Muyan and found the same problem. Mo Yen said, indeed, he said last that he hoped you would be alive to see him in the tournament for hegemony and asked you not to delay and to hurry back to improve your strength for the tournament. His goal is definitely for the tournament for hegemony. Why is a tier 9 demon cultivator going for the humans continental tournament for hegemony? After Bing Ji began to follow Lu Mu Yen, he also knew of Tianling continent's tournament for hegemony, so he was very puzzled by the demon cultivator's purpose. Could it be that he wants to destroy the humans' prosperous age? Probably not. Lu Mu Yen shook her head, don't overthink it. Well, no, when the time comes. She didn't think that Thunder Monarch had such a noble sentiment that he would fight against the human race for the sake of the demon race. From the fact that he gifted her tier 5 demonic beasts as interest, she knew that demon cultivator's personality was extremely indifferent. She just had a feeling that the tier 9 demon cultivator was not only going for the tournament for hegemony, but also had a deep connection with the tournament. Our top priority right now is to improve our strength. Lu Mu Yan's eyes revealed firmness. Bing Ji, you can't be lazy when we return. Today's events had affected her deeply. It felt very awful to be threatened by high-level powerhouses. If she wanted to break free from such a situation, then she must make herself infinitely stronger, and as such, could also be able to protect her family. I know, owner. Bing Ji nodded. Since meeting that tier 9 demon cultivator, he also didn't dare to be complacent and conservative anymore. For the first time, a sense of crisis was born in his heart. 2 hours later, Lu Mu Yen rushed to a dense forest. Shi Feng and the others sat cross-legged under a big tree to recover. After discovering a foreign aura and realized it was Lu Mu Yan's, the several people opened their eyes and looked at her with a little excitement. Mu Yen, are you fine? I'm fine, I've made you all worry. Lu Mu Yen could see that although the several people were recovering, but the worried looks couldn't be concealed. That tier 9 demon cultivator didn't make things difficult for you, right? Yi Qing Han asked in concern. No, just asked me about the human-eating blood thorn vine king. Lu Mu Yen didn't want to tell the few people about her agreement with Thunder Monarch, but he doesn't allow us to stay in the 3 danger areas anymore, so he sent us all out. Yi Qing Han and the others nodded with varying expressions, knowing that things were definitely not that simple, but they understood to not ask any more questions. Let's go back to Luoxi City. Lu Mu Yen wanted to remove Yi Qing Lu and Ling Fei Yang's poison and quickly return to the Lu clan as soon as possible to prepare for the continental tournament for hegemony. Hearing the tone of that tier 9 demon cultivator, the continental tournament for hegemony wasn't that simple, and there were also life-threatening worries. She should at least do some more preparations. Alright. The matter of catching demonic beasts at Sunset Cloud Mountain Range was already impossible now, and they also wanted to return to Luoxi City as soon as possible. It only took the few people half a day to return to Luoxi City on Bing Ji. Originally, Mu Yi and Shi Feng didn't plan to stay after visiting, but Lu Mu Yan's treatment could be observed, so they didn't leave immediately either. At night, Lu Mu Yen called for Yunlan and Ling Fei Yang telepathic. The two of them coincidentally went to the courtyard where Lu Mu Yen resided together. Yenner, you want us for something? Yunlan asked after sitting down. Lu Mu Yen took out a box of spiritual tea from Yi Zhan and brewed it. Indeed, there's something. Seeing that both of them looked at her with puzzled eyes, Lu Mu Yen filled their cups with the brewed spiritual tea, and with a snap of her fingers, a white light flashed. The soundproof spiritual proof array that had already been arranged in the room early on activated. With a thought, 2 demonic beasts at peak phase tier 5 strength that had been marked by a contract seal appeared in the room. Most of the late phase tier 5 demonic beasts could all change their size, so the 2 demonic beasts both became the size of ordinary tigers according to Lu Mu Yan's request. Yenner, are these 2 tier 5 demonic beasts contracted by you? Yunlan asked, dumbfounded, looking at the demonic beasts on the floor. Ling Fei Yang's indifferent eyes also revealed some shock. Although he knew that Lu Mu Yen was a spirit beast master, but he was still unaccustomed to it after personally seeing her release peak phase tier 5 demonic beasts. That tier 9 demon cultivator left me in another place in the foggy forest. When I came, I caught 3 tier 5 demonic beasts along the way to contract. Lu Mu Yen pointed to the 2 demonic beasts whose attributes were very compatible with the 2 and said, elder cousin brothers, please choose one with the same attribute and drip a drop of blood to contract. This? Ling Fei Yang thought a bit, then said, you can bring the one you wanted to give me back and give it to Mu Bai or Mu Ting to contract. Yunlan also felt that he owed Lu Mu Yen a lot. When there's another chance in the future, you can help me contract. You can bring these 2 back to the Lu clan. Lu Mu Yen praised the character of the 2 in her heart. In the face of such temptation, although they desired it, but they were still able to remain clear-headed, they were worthy for her to raise. Elder cousin brothers don't believe in my ability that much? Lu Mu Yen smiled brightly and said, since I can catch these 2 tier 5 demonic beasts to contract, then I'll naturally be able to find more suitable spirit pets for my elder brothers in the future. The attributes of these 2 demonic beasts are very compatible with the 2 of you. Hurry up and make a contract, otherwise I'll be angry. Ling Fei Yang and Yunlan exchanged a glance and found that Lu Mu Yen wasn't joking. There was warmth in their eyes, and the 2 were no longer quarrelsome. They stepped up and chose a demonic beast each to drip a drop of blood and contract. Early the next morning. After Lu Mu Yen applied acupuncture on Yi Qing Lu and went back to her room to rest for 2 hours, she started to prepare the materials needed to break the blood curse in Ling Fei Yang's body. Mu Yen, what are you looking for? I'll help you find it. Yi Qing Han saw that Lu Mu Yen was about to go out, so he stepped forward to ask. Lu Mu Yen originally didn't want to trouble Yi Qing Han again, but seeing the anticipation in those obsidian-like eyes, she thought about it, then gave him a list, then he'll trouble Qing Han. Yi Qing Han took the list and scanned it once, saying, I can find all these things. Mu Yan, you go back to your room to rest first, and it'll come to you when I find everything. All right. Lu Mu Yan sighed when Yi Qing Han walked away quickly with the list in hand. Yi Qing Han's kindness towards her, she remembered it all. But she was unable to reciprocate the feelings other than that of friendship. But suddenly drifting apart would also cause misunderstandings. She could only take one step at a time and see what happens. After chatting with Yi Qing Lu and Mu Xia, Lu Mu Yan returned to her room and started to meditate. At night, she took out some of the blood thorn sacks obtained from the human-eating blood thorn vine king. After obtaining Yi Chen's approval, she took the water from the spiritual spring on the mountain behind the Yi clan and began to brew spiritual wine. After regrouping at Sunset Cloud Mountain Range, Shi Feng and the others gave Lu Mu Yan some of the human-eating blood thorn vines they obtained. In order to not expose that she had already contracted shui, she thought about it and decided to take it, prepared to brew spiritual wine with it, then gift it. A day later, Yi Qing Han returned with the things that Lu Mu Yan needed. She discovered that there was a remote yard in the Yi clan where the sun was very strong every day. It was uncomfortable for people to live in it, so it was used to store miscellaneous things. She needed this kind of strong sunlight to lift the blood curse from the devil cultivator, so she borrowed the courtyard from the Yi clan. After hearing that she was going to start to lift the blood curse on Ling Fei Yang, and after obtaining her permission, Shi Feng and the others came to observe from a distance. Even Yi Chen and Yi Zhan coincidentally came at the same time. Elder cousin brother Fei Yang, go sit in the circle I drew and don't step outside the circle no matter what happens. Lu Mu Yan pointed to a circle drawn with cinnabar in the middle of the yard. Ling Fei Yang had a warm smile on his handsome and elegant face, all right. After speaking, he went straight to the circle and sat cross-legged. Lu Mu Yan took out the 4 jade sculptures of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird and black tortoise, placing them in the 4 positions of east, west, south and north. Everyone watched her put down the jade sculptures, then she measured her steps with a serious expression, and placed a copper coin on the ground every few steps. Is she setting up an array? Yi Chen asked Yi Zhan. Yi Zhan kept his eyes fixed on Lu Mu Yan's movements. Yes, but I've never seen such an array. Isn't this girl's talent too strong? Yi Chen's complexion changed, and he couldn't help but sigh. Array masters were even rarer on Tianling continent than alchemists, smiths, and spirit beast masters. They not only needed talent, but also needed to comprehend elemental energy of the 3 attributes of fire, wood, and metal. The secret manuals to do with arrays were rarely circulated in public, and the array methods outside were generally foundation texts. Some were also incomplete. It wasn't difficult to learn by oneself, but it was exceptionally difficult to achieve success. Indeed. Alchemist, spirit beast master, array master, this girl's talent is probably unmatched even by those super geniuses in the northern and southern regions. Yi Zhan also revealed admiration in his eyes. This girl would show people a new side of her every time they met. Yi Chen took a sip from his teacup and said after a while, not only that, but it also showed that this girl had comprehended 3 attributes of elemental energy. The color blue is made out of indigo but is more vivid than indigo. I've currently only comprehended 3 kinds of elemental energy at late phase sword monarch cultivation base. She hasn't even reached the age of 18. The eastern region will only be her starting point in the future. Yi Chen's eyes darkened, and he added. What's so good about staying in the eastern region? I don't approve of Qing Han inheriting the Yi clan. I hope he can also join a sect after the continental tournament for hegemony. Yi Zhan wasn't pleased. He was very opposed to the idea of the Yi clan superiors wanting Yi Qing Han to inherit the Yi clan in the future. With Yi Qing Han's talents, if he didn't go to the northern and southern regions to pave a way for himself, then it was a pity. Yi Chen nodded. Qing Han inheriting the Yi clan is just the last resort of the ancestors. If he can enter one of the 6 major sects through the tournament for hegemony and become an outer core pupil, then the clan naturally won't hold him back. If there's no accident, he will. Eldest brother should look for someone else who is suitable to inherit the Yi clan's head of family in the future. Yi Zhan's implication was that Yi Chen could start looking for an heir and train them. If Yi Qing Han couldn't make it to the top 100 in the continental tournament for hegemony this time and had no fate with the sects, he would still bring him to travel the continent and find opportunities for development. I'll think about it. Yi Chen said. About an hour later, Lu Mu Yan finished arranging the 4 symbols unification array, walked to the center of the array, and sat cross-legged. She took out a black array flag from her interspatial ring. This was a soul-suppressing flag she refined, specifically used to absorb and refine evil spirits, and it could also be used as a flag for arrays. She exhaled a breath of essence from her mouth to mobilize the array flag. Then the array flag was controlled by her and landed above the array in midair. She kept forming seals with both hands and chanted an obscure spell as usual. Taoist seals flew out of her hands and penetrated into the 4 jade sculptures one after the other. Strips of jade-colored talismans connected the 4 jade sculptures, and instantly, brilliant rays of lights flourished and the copper coins on the ground also trembled slightly. Quick! She whispered, and the jade-colored talisman ribbons flew out from the 4 jade sculptures one by one and entered Ling Fei Yang's body. Time passed bit by bit. Everyone just saw strips of jade-colored talismans enter and exit Ling Fei Yang's body. Each time it exited, a trace of black aura would be entangled with it. As soon as the black aura appeared, the array flag above the array could ceaselessly spin and absorb it all. Ling Fei Yang's body trembled countless times, as if spasming in pain. Evil spirits would even appear in his mind to lure him out of the circle. He quickly recited the scriptures, his heart calmed bit by bit, and he persevered through willpower. Pu. After an entire day and night passed, Ling Fei Yang suddenly opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of black blood. The black blood squirmed a few times. Lu Mu Yen intertwined her hands and formed a seal. Her eyes sharpened and her red lips slightly parted. Collect. The array flag above the array lit up brilliantly, and a big hand condensed from elemental energy reached out and stretched towards the black blood on the ground. After a while, the big hand slowly pulled back out from the black blood and everyone saw that it was grabbing the souls of several evil spirits, forcefully tearing and dragging them back into the array flag. As soon as those evil spirits were pulled out, they wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves, but no one sympathized with them. They only all hoped to eliminate them as soon as possible. The moment the evil spirits entered the array flag, the pile of black blood on the ground gradually turned red and faded, then finally disappeared. Ling Fei Yang's complexion also gradually turned from pale to rosy, and the blood curse that had trapped him for the few years was finally lifted. Lu Mu Yen collected all the evil spirits into the array flag, and with a wave of her hand, the array flag landed in her palm. The blood curse had been lifted. She put away the magic tools used to arrange the array with one by one, then stood up with a pale complexion and said, "I'm a little tired, so we'll go back to rest first. Elder cousin brother Fei Yang, after you return, remember to adjust your body and rest for 3 days. All right. Yenner, hurry back and go rest." Seeing her stunning little face turn pale, Ling Fei Yang said in concern. Lu Mu Yen was indeed really tired. So she greeted everyone and went back to her room to rest. 3 days later, Lu Mu Yen walked out of her room and Yi Chen had long been waiting outside for a while. "Lu girl, our Yi clan's ancestors want to see you." Translated product by May. "Lu girl, our Yi clan's ancestors want to see you." Hearing Yi Chen's words, Lu Mu Yan's expression didn't change. She nodded with a light smile, "Then I will trouble Uncle Yi." Yi Chen brought her to a hidden courtyard and teleported using a teleportation array in a secret room. Lu Mu Yan was a little curious about the secret area of the Yi clan. They actually needed to use a teleportation array. If it wasn't because it was too far away, then it was too secretive. Yi Chen placed 2 spiritual stones on the teleportation array and as soon as the teleportation array lit up, the 2 disappeared in the secret room. When Lu Mu Yen walked out of the teleportation array, she found a stream of spiritual force wafted into her nostrils. This was the place with the densest spiritual force she had ever seen here. "There's still a way to go, let's walk over." Yi Chen saw that Lu Mu Yan's eyes were still indifferent. He revealed an amiable smile on his face, and he thought higher of her. Lu Mu Yan just happened to want to inquire about something from Yi Chen. "All right. By the way, what kind of spar was that rock that Uncle Yi placed in the teleportation array?" She had always suspected that there were spiritual stones on Tianling continent, but she had never seen it before. Just now, when she saw Yi Chen use 2 low-quality spiritual stones to activate the teleportation array, she was able to guess that spiritual stones were probably only used between high-level powerhouses or distinguished clans as currencies of transaction. "That's a spiritual stone which is necessary to activate the teleportation array." Yi Chen said with a smile, "The spiritual stones contain spiritual energy, which can not only be used for teleportation and forming arrays, but it could also be used to absorb by oneself and is a currency for transactions. The only people who have spiritual stones in Yenzhou Kingdom are those in the imperial family, and they're mostly used for teleportation. It's normal that you haven't seen them before. So that's how it is. Then is it that the currency used for transactions between high-level powerhouses also spiritual stones? Crystal card is useless." Lu Mu Yen asked with a smile. Yi Chen's eyes were filled with admiration. This girl was indeed bright. She only just heard that spiritual stones were a trading currency and already thought that it was used among high-level powerhouses. Indeed. The powerhouses above Sword Sovereign basically don't use crystal cards to trade. If they don't trade item for item, then they exchange things with spiritual stones. If you see such spiritual stones in the future, remember to collect them. It's very useful. Yi Chen thought a bit, then took out a low-quality spiritual stone and handed it to Lu Mu Yen. Lu Mu Yen took it and felt that the spiritual force contained within was similar to that of the immortal cultivation world. She returned it with a smile, "Thank you Uncle Yi for reminding me, I've remembered." Yi Chen didn't take it, "I'll gift this spiritual stone to you. It'll be good for you to compare with in the future." Lu Mu Yen wasn't quarrelsome either, so she accepted the spiritual stone and thanked again. She could see that the spiritual stone was also a very precious thing in the Yi clan. By the way, the spiritual stone has the 5 attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The color is also similar to the attribute. For example, the red spiritual stone given to you just now has the fire attribute. Yi Chen reminded. The 2 walked and chatted, and after a while, they arrived at a quiet woods. Following the woods upwards, Lu Mu Yen saw a small lake in the distance, and the lake was filled with a layer of mist. There was a hint of surprise in Lu Mu Yan's eyes. This Yi clan was truly worthy of being ranked 3rd in the 10 distinguished clans, and also as the most mysterious clan. There was even a lake that was formed from a spiritual spring's mouth of a spring. Following a small bridge, the 2 walked to the innermost bamboo house in the center of the lake. "Ancestor, I have brought the Lu clan's little girl," Yi Chen said respectfully while standing outside the bamboo house. The door of the bamboo house opened automatically after he said it, "Come in." Lu Mu Yen followed Yi Chen into the wooden house and saw an elderly male and elderly female sitting on the side. This junior greets 2 seniors. Lu Mu Yen performed the greeting of juniors. The elderly woman sitting cross-legged on the right slowly opened her eyes and glanced at her quietly. Lu Muyen felt an oncoming pressure from the elderly woman, but there was no killing aura nor any suppression, only a test. She mobilized her entire Buddha's spiritual energy, smiling faintly and not moving a single bit. Oh. The elderly woman whispered, this little girl with the strength of a sword king indeed had some ability. Although her pressure didn't have any suppressive killing intent, but it wasn't something that any ordinary sword master could resist without feeling flustered. Lu Clan's little girl, sit. The white-bearded elderly man who sat on the left revealed a slight smile. Lu Muyen wasn't restrained either. She saw that there were indeed a few wooden chairs next to the two of them in the wooden house, so she found one at random to sit down on. Yi Chen's eyes showed some satisfaction, and he also picked a chair and sat down. This little girl's manner was indeed rare. She wasn't startled by great waves, and was calm and collected as ever. If she really became his daughter-in-law in the future, that wasn't that bad. Lu girl, I heard that Qing-less poison has been cured by you for the most part. The elderly man who sat above said. Lu Muyen answered truthfully, it's true that most of the poison has been removed, and it could be completely removed in another half a month. It is truly rare for one to have such medical skills at such a young age. The Lu clan is fortunate. Senior praises with exaggeration. Lu Muyen smiled modestly. Lu Muyen quietly waited for what the elderly man wanted to say next with a faint smile. She knew that the two ancestors of the Yi clan definitely didn't meet her today for Yi Qing-less situation. Not arrogant nor impetuous, a good temperament. The elderly woman who hadn't spoken suddenly said with a hint of liking in her tone. The white-bearded old man nodded in agreement and no longer kept her guessing, smiling as he said, Lu girl, this old man won't go around in circles anymore with you. Do you still have marrow cleansing pills? Lu Muyen's eyes were light, but she thought as expected inwardly, yes. I wonder if you can sell a few to our Yi clan? The white-bearded elderly man asked. Whether the efficacy of the marrow cleansing pill was as miraculous as in the legends, they naturally knew best. After all, Yi Qing Han's meridians had been more than doubled by the marrow cleansing pill. Using this kind of pill to raise several talented juniors was definitely a significant matter for the Yi clan. The strength of each clan was actually not about how big it was and how rich its assets were. The key point actually depended on the number of high-level powerhouses. If the clan was big and had a big business but there were no high-level powerhouses, then they'd inevitably embark on the road of elimination. Although I don't have many marrow cleansing pills on hand right now, but am on friendly terms with Qing Han and Qing Lu. I can take out 3 to trade to the Yi clan. Lu Muyen thought a bit and said. The two ancestors glanced at each other and sighed that this girl indeed knew how to be a good person. She previously gave Yi Qing Han and Yi Qing Lu a marrow cleansing pill each and didn't ask for any benefits. Now she took out 3 more again. They couldn't help but be moved. After the last application of acupuncture, Lu Muyen gave Yi Qing Lu a marrow cleansing pill to wash the marrow and cleanse the body. The superiors of the clan all knew about this and were shocked by her generosity. Only after guessing that she didn't just have 1 marrow cleansing pill left, did the Yi clan's ancestors open their mouth, wanting to exchange for a few. Little girl is very straightforward, so our Yi clan naturally can't let you suffer. Do you want to exchange purple gold coins, or do you want to exchange using items? The white-bearded old man touched his beard and looked loving. Lu Muyen had long guessed the purpose of why the Yi clan's ancestors sought for her. She originally had an exchange list thought of, but now she had changed her mind. Senior, this junior likes to study arrays and heard that many high-level arrays required spiritual stones to complete. I wonder if I can request for spiritual stones in exchange for my marrow cleansing pills? Lu Muyen appeared as if young and unexperienced, asking with a little embarrassment. Yi Chen couldn't resist twitching the corners of his lips. It seemed that the person who told her of this was himself, right? Was this himself cheating himself? This girl really didn't let herself suffer any losses learning and applying it pragmatically, no losses at all. After all, spiritual stones were rare. Translated product by Mayar. Hearing that Lu Muyen wanted to trade with spiritual stones, the two ancestors of the Yi clan were surprised. Little girl, do you also know the path of the arrays? The white-bearded elderly man asked, half believing, half disbelieving. The path of the array and restrictions weren't so easy to learn. In the entire Tianling continent, all the high-level array masters could be counted on 2 hands. Even low-middle level array masters were people strongly vied for by major forces. From this, one could see just how scarce array masters were. Without any talent and strong comprehension abilities, it definitely wasn't possible to become one. This Lu clan's little girl was already an alchemist at such a young age, could also tame beasts, and now she even understood arrays. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Hearing such news, the shock was too great, and they had never seen it in action before, so they couldn't help but have some doubts. I know a little bit. Lu Muyen nodded with a smile, my master once taught me the surface of things. Well, to the master who I don't even know where you are, please excuse me I'll use your name again. The two from the Yi clan was stunned for a bit, then quickly understood. It seemed that the respected master behind the Lu clan's little girl was a remarkable person. Little girl, I wonder who your respected master is? Could you reveal a little? The white-bearded old man asked curiously, then added after a pause, of course, if it is inconvenient, then you don't have to say. Everyone had their own secrets. If the Lu clan's girl didn't want to reveal the identity of her respected master, then they naturally wouldn't force her. My respected master is Old Man Tian Xian. Lu Muyen was already prepared to use this name to deal with all those who questioned who her respected master was. And she didn't lie either. Old Man Tian Xian was her master in the previous life. It was just that the name that she casually spoke made the pupils of the two Yi clan elders constrict and the elderly woman almost cried out. Lu girl, you actually could have old man Tian Xian as your master, truly what a great fortuitous encounter. The white-bearded old man's expression changed and said with a smile. Lu Muyen also discovered that the two was a little weird. Her eyelid couldn't help but jump. Could it be that there was also an old man Tian Xian on Tianling continent? Senior knows my master? Lu Muyen asked tentatively with a smile. The face of the white-bearded old man changed again, and he said with a dry laugh, how could this old man know such a powerhouse? Lu Muyen blinked her eyes and now thought inwardly that she was doomed. How could it be that a name she randomly pulled out be the same name as someone else, and it seemed that this person wasn't a trivial person either. So it turns out that my master is this famous. Lu Muyen continued in an attempt to gain more information. Your respected master is very low profile and is also a peerless powerhouse. He hadn't shown his face for hundreds of years. Who knew that you would have such a fortuitous encounter to be under him? There was a hint of envy in the white-bearded old man's tone. Lu Muyen suddenly felt her head pound. Peerless powerhouse? Although her master was indeed a peerless powerhouse in the spiritual world, but this was Tianling continent. That old man already became a wandering immortal, and definitely couldn't have also transmigrated onto this continent. Then there was only one possibility, that was, the same name. However, the old man Tian Xian here hadn't appeared for hundreds of years, so she would just use his name temporarily. In the future, it was best to not raise the question of who her respected master was. So that's the case. In fact, I've also only met my respected master once. He taught me some things, then went to wander around. Lu Muyen sighed. Inwardly, she sure hoped that they didn't ask her to help make connections or anything. She, herself, didn't even know who this old man Tian Xian here was either. Sure enough, she caught a serious, obscure flash of disappointment in the eyes of the two Yi clan's ancestors. She was glad that she was clever and blocked their mouths beforehand. Then you have to study hard, especially on the path of the arrays. After all, your respected master is one of the strongest array masters on Tianling continent. The white-bearded old man had a look of reverence in his eyes. There were very few sword masters in the eastern region who knew that old man Tian Xian existed, and there was Lu Muyen's talent to consider, especially the fact that she understood the path of the arrays, which was very consistent with the Almighty's most powerful aspect, so it didn't make the Yi clan's ancestors doubt her words. This junior will. Lu Muyen smiled modestly. Her expression didn't change, but her heart was turned upside down. This old man Tian Xian was actually one of the strongest array masters on Tianling continent. Her master in the spiritual world was an alchemy master, and he hadn't even studied arrays as thoroughly as herself. It seemed that they indeed weren't the same person. But if she had a chance, she really needed to go and exchange pointers with this old man Tian Xian on the path of the arrays. Senior, then what do you think about the exchange conditions this junior mentioned just now? Lu Muyen asked with a smile. That was practically all the news she wanted to inquire about. If she asked any more, she might expose herself, so it was better to change the subject as soon as possible. The white-bearded elderly man and the elderly woman looked at each other, then he looked at Lu Muyen with a more loving expression and said, you are a friend of Qing Han and Qing Lu. We can still satisfy this exchange requirement, but we wonder how many spiritual stones you want. This junior doesn't have a number in mind either. How about senior decide? Lu Muyen smiled without concern, refreshing and generous. But she cursed old fox inwardly. How could she list the price? Seeing how Yi Chen was twitching his lips just now, she knew that the Yi clan wouldn't have a lot of spiritual stones either. If she couldn't resist and asked for an exorbitant amount, she was even afraid that they wouldn't be able to afford it. Now that she turned the tables by placing the responsibility on him, she didn't believe that this old man wouldn't feel embarrassed if he gave too little. Plus the name of her fake master, today she definitely would make a profit in this business. The white-bearded elderly man had a smile on his face, but he was bleeding inwardly. This girl could ask for anything, yet why did she have to want spiritual stones? However, they'd appear too stingy if they didn't give it to her. How about 300 spiritual stones? Lu Muyen rolled her eyes inwardly. 300 low-quality spiritual stones? Was he trying to send away a beggar? But after seeing Yi Chen's distressed appearance, she could guess that 300 was already the limit for the Yi clan to exchange with. However much senior says is however much. Lu Muyen replied humbly. She comforted herself inwardly. 300 low-quality spiritual stones was actually not that bad at all. It was better than having purple gold coins that were practically useless. If the three of them knew she was still dissatisfied with the amount, they'd definitely vomit blood. The total amount of spiritual stones in their Yi clan was only around 20,000 pieces, and the daily consumption on arrays was already huge. These were all spiritual stones that were exchanged from going to larger regions and helping contract spirit pets. Being able to take out 300 to trade for the marrow cleansing pill wasn't just because they wanted to befriend Lu Muyen, but it was also because they feared the old man Tian Xian behind her. By the way, I think seniors already know that I have an Isolwan spirit pet. He very much likes to eat the belly beads of the Jiangchuan Lin fish, so I wonder if the Yi clan still has any collected? This junior wants to exchange for some. Lu Muyen expressed a very obedient and agreeable look. Those beads were a good thing. Not only were they useful to Bing Ji, but also extremely useful to her. Bing Ji stood on Lu Muyen's shoulder. When he heard her say that, he was even touched by her. Little owner really was so kind. The belly bead of the Jiangchuan Lin fish? The white-bearded old man secretly observed that the eyes of the seven-colored parrot, transformed from the ice swan, lit up after hearing about the belly bead, and his expression also became excited, so he believed her words. There are still some in the clan's inner storehouse, I'll let Yi-Chen deliver it to you later. The white-bearded old man said without hesitation. Lu Mu-Yen said with a smile, then this junior will use some herbs in exchange. No need. The Jiangchuan Lin fish's belly beads aren't worth much, so I'll gift you all of it. The white-bearded old man waved his hand and said generously. There was indeed a trace of water spiritual force in those belly beads of the Jiangchuan Lin fish, but they and other clans hadn't been able to find a way to refine and absorb them even after researching for many years. It was fine to use those to form a better relationship. Then thank you, senior. Lu Mu-Yan's face revealed a senior, you really are very generous expression, which made the white-bearded old man smile even more. Junior still wants to trade for something else. I wonder if senior is willing to give it up. Lu Mu-Yen asked, taking the opportunity to strike while the iron was hot, with a hint of embarrassment on her face. The white-bearded old man's smile froze. Even Yi-Chen's lips couldn't help but twitch again. Was there an end or not for this girl? Junior still wants to trade for something. I wonder if senior is willing to give it up. The two ancestors of the Yi clan and Yi-Chen didn't know what else she wanted to trade for, and they were also a little curious. I wonder what little Lu girl wants to trade. The white-bearded old man asked as he touched his long beard. Lu Mu-Yan's eyes gleamed brightly and said with a smile, I want to trade for the spiritual spring water in the depths of the mouth of the spring beneath this spiritual lake. Hearing her words, the expressions of the three people in the house changed. The girl came here for the first time but actually discovered the mouth of the spring beneath the spiritual lake. I wonder what you want the spiritual spring water in the depths of the mouth of the spring for? The elderly woman asked before the white-bearded old man. Used to brew spiritual wine. Lu Mu-Yen didn't conceal it either. If she didn't talk about the spiritual wine, then she probably wouldn't be able to obtain the spiritual spring water. A surprised expression appeared on the face of the white-bearded old man, brew spiritual wine? You can. Lu Mu-Yen smiled lightly, master once tossed me a secret manual for brewing wine. I studied it myself for a while and have already brewed a few pots with the blood sac of the human-eating blood thorn vine and it doesn't taste too bad. According to the records in the secret manual, if it is brewed with the spiritual water in the depths of the spiritual spring's mouth of the spring, then the spiritual wine brewed would be even richer, more mellow, sweeter and more refreshing, and the effect of improving one's skills will also be better. She added. The white-bearded old man couldn't help holding his forehead. This girl really was a freak. How was she able to do anything? This talent was a little too heaven-defying. No wonder it was said that after a person with terminal meridian's constitution had recovered from it, their talent would be exceptionally abnormal and monstrous. Now it seemed that they were indeed very abnormal and monstrous. Take out the blood sac wine you made and let us have a taste. If it does indeed taste really good, then this old man will trade with you. When it came to wine, the white-bearded old man was filled with energy. One must know that the limited amount of spiritual wine of Stream Reflection Restaurant every month was all booked by him. Lu Mu-Yen took out a white jade wine jug and 3 white jade cups. After filling them, she gave it to the 3 of them to drink. The liquid in the white jade wine cup was transparent and cherry red, so clear one could see the bottom. The moment the wine was poured into the cup, its rich and mellow aroma wafted into their nose, causing the white-bearded old man to swallow irresistibly. Yi-Chen and the elderly woman took a sip from the wine cup, and they couldn't help revealing pleasant surprise in their eyes. The white-bearded old man deeply smelled the aroma of the wine in the cup and drank it in one mouthful. Then he smacked his lips with an expression of reflecting on its aftertaste. He slapped his thigh, good wine. Then, like a gust of wind, he swiftly arrived before Lu Mu-Yen, took the wine jug from her hand, and returned to his original position to drink one cup after another. His appearance of drinking with abandon made Yi-Chen twitch uncontrollably and his heart was bleeding. Me ancestors, ah. Can you leave some for us? After the elderly woman finished the spiritual wine in her cup and saw the white-bearded old man being so reckless, she couldn't help furrowing her brows. Old man, save some. Save what, ah? The white-bearded old man turned the white jade jug upside down and the last 2 drops of wine dripped down. He said as if his flesh hurt, how come it's gone after only a few drinks? The corner of Lu Mu-Yan's lips twitched slightly. What about your demeanor of a transcendent being? He was just a whole old alcoholic now. Lu girl, didn't you say that you brewed a few jugs of blood sac wine? Oh, you should at least pay some respects with presents to me, this old man, after coming to the Yi clan. The white-bearded old man rubbed his hands vulgarly, saying with a smile. This was the sweetest and most fragrant spiritual wine he had ever drank, and it was many times purer in taste than the spiritual wine that came out from the Stream Reflection Restaurant that those fussy people brewed to specifically whet one's appetite. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. She really was worthy to be that one's disciple. Not to mention all the other talents, just based on the talent of winemaking, she'd definitely be able to eat all the tasty food and strong drinks she wanted out there. There was absolutely no worry that she wouldn't be able to survive out there, and there'd definitely be numerous people who would want to curry favor with her. As expected, his family's Han boy has good eyesight. He already brought the little girl back to see his parents so quickly. If Lu Mu-Yen knew what the old man was thinking, she'd definitely snatched the jug over and not let him drink a single drop. She was obviously here to treat people all right. When the elderly woman heard his words, she suddenly felt that, not to mention losing face, she also completely lost everything inside her. Old man, don't see spiritual wine and become abnormal, you'll scare the little girl. The white-bearded old man laughed dryly, then said, "Isn't it just because I saw delicious wine, so I didn't control myself the best?" After speaking, he stared at Lu Muyen with glowing eyes. Lu Muyen didn't take his behavior and go along with it, instead saying with a light smile, "Senior, how about I exchange this blood sack wine for the spiritual spring?" Exchanged. The white-bearded old man made a direct decision, then his eyes rolled around in thought and said, "But this time you have to give me a few more jugs of blood sack wine and also send a few jugs of fine wine brewed from the spiritual spring in the future. As long as you don't empty the spiritual spring in the depths of the mouth of the spring, you can take as you like." Yi Chen was utterly speechless, looking up at the skimmy ancestor. That was the spring water essence that the Yi clan's spiritual spring's mouth of the spring nurtured for thousands of years. Could you not be so prodigal? The elderly woman also shook her head helplessly. As soon as this damned old man saw wine, had become a nutjob. Although she also felt pained inwardly, but they couldn't go back on what the old man had said. "Alright, then that's a promise." Lu Muyan's grape-like bright black eyes flashed with brilliant colors. The spring water in the depths of the Yi clan's mouth of the spring was the essence of thousands of years. It was definitely effective for brewing blood sack wine and other types of spiritual wine. Fortunately, this old man was addicted to alcohol, otherwise it would have definitely been difficult to exchange for the spiritual spring. In the end, Lu Muyen gave all 6 jugs of blood sack wine to the old man, then jumped into the depths of the spiritual lake's mouth of the spring herself and began to collect spring water. Of course, although she had the ability to take all the essence of the spiritual spring, but she didn't do it. She still understood the principle of knowing when it was enough. But she still took away about half of the spring water so that when the white-bearded old man sobered up eventually after drinking wine, he thumped his chest and stamped his feet all day long, extremely pained in his heart. From time to time he would even urge Yi Qing Han to quickly take Lu Muyen in as his wife-rich water shouldn't flow to others' fields too. It annoyed Yi Qing Han so much he directly went into closed-door cultivation. Lu Muyen stayed at the Yi clan another half a month, and after completely detoxifying Yi Qing Lu and Ling Fei Yang, she bid farewell and prepared to return to the Lu clan. "Elder sister Muyen, why don't you just cultivate at the Yi clan, then go to the continental tournament for hegemony with elder brother?" Yi Qing Lu hugged Lu Muyen's arm, reluctant to let her leave. "I'll go ask ancestors to let you use the secret area to cultivate. The spiritual force there is very abundant." Yi Chen felt helpless. Why did this girl's elbows turn the wrong way? Could just anyone go into the secret area to cultivate in it? Of course, if the Lu girl brought 2 jugs of spiritual wine to visit ancestor, then she could definitely remain in the secret area to cultivate. There are no feasts in this world where guests do not depart for. I still have things to do when I go back to the Lu clan, so I really can't remain here any longer. Besides, we'll probably meet again very soon. Lu Muyen patted Yi Qing's head and said softly. Yi Qing Han also wanted Lu Muyen to stay for a while longer, but he knew that she was very eager to return to the Lu clan. "Qinglu, there are still more opportunities to meet in the future. Don't pester your elder sister Muyen anymore." "Then elder sister Muyen, you have to take care and come visit me often when you have time," Yi Qinglu said with a pursed mouth. Lu Muyen scraped her nose and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll visit you when I'm free." Afterwards, she exchanged a few words with Shifeng and Mu Yi, then rode on Bing Ji and left Luoxi City, heading towards the imperial capital of Yanzhou Kingdom. Together with her were also Yunlan and Ling Fei Yang.